Now, South Africa remains one of the most unequal countries in the world. Government allocates a high percentage of our GDP to health, education, housing and welfare. Yet the poverty and inequality gap is wider than ever. Stellenbosch University has been looking at how to create equal opportunities for all South Africans. For more on this, I'm joined by its Social Justice Chair, Professor Thuli Madonsela. Prof, thank you so much for your time this morning. We appreciate it. You've, of course, emphasized that businesses and civil society, they do have a duty and they are accountable for advancing social justice as well. You also emphasize the fact that we need to move beyond CSI and get to a place of social corporate, or rather corporate social responsibility. Do you mind expanding on that?
Greetings generally and to the viewers. Yes, indeed. The conference agreed that business and society have a role in advancing social justice, and that role goes beyond corporate social responsibility or corporate social investment. There was a suggestion which was accepted at the conference that when business thinks about social giving or social impact, it shouldn't just be thinking about corporate social investment, which is more looking into BE points and branding. It should be looking at corporate social responsibility, which is responding to the challenges in society and creating an ecosystem that is good for business, good for society. Because if the ecosystem is good for society, it will be good for business and it will be sustainable for everyone.
Now, Prof, corruption, of course, plays a very big role when it comes to social injustice, and oftentimes we just lay the blame at the door of the government, but corporate also plays a role when it comes to corruption and its impact on social justice.
Certainly, corruption is a bilateral crime. The people who approach government with big offers of gratification or bribes, they would be corporates, from small to big, from local to international. And therefore the conference firstly said corruption is an injustice, and in many instances a social injustice, and a grave injustice for that matter. And that part of advancing social justice is ending corruption in society and in state affairs.
Now, Prof, when you look at the state of our country when it comes to social injustice, when you look at our history and our backlogs, the Musa plan for social justice, for instance, is supported, and similar plans are also recommended for countries that has a history and a climate similar to ours. How do you envision the implementation of such plans, and what challenges and opportunities do they present?
Well, the starting point was to accept that it's important that we connect our lives, because the conference found that both internationally and domestically, there's a lot of good work by business and civil society, from tackling hunger to big issues such as land redistribution and corporate inclusivity or business ownership inclusivity. But these initiatives are not synergized, and a lot of waste happens and a lot of areas are not tackled. So the Musa plan for social justice is a social justice accelerator plan that seeks to ensure that we make good progress fast on the global sustainable development goals, and therefore every country can have it. And how does this happen? It's number one, it is financing the progress from corporate donations to normal donations from ordinary people as part of crowdfunding. And then secondly, everybody rolling up their sleeves to be part of this, and then tackling specified areas. For example, we agreed that in the coming year, the focus is going to be on hunger. And therefore somebody will ask, oh no, hunger, there's homelessness, there's all of these things. We think a whole lot of things can be tackled from hunger. But from Maslow's hierarchy of needs, hunger is the first thing that people think about. People can't even think about electing the right government when they're hungry. They can't philosophize when they're hungry. But some people are hungry for food, and yet the rich are hungry for safety.
Professor, you touched on hunger now, and as you said, that will be one of the focus areas of your research at the university, as well as scaling of good practices. How will that research and the outcome of that research help South Africa to really tip the scale in terms of social injustice?
Well, the research, firstly, the starting point is to find out from Stellenbosch University who else is doing some research on hunger and what kind of research are they doing. We envisage research on what is the extent of hunger. We do know that there's various studies that have shown that a lot of people go to bed without a meal for at least 3 times a week. And we know that the number of people globally that go to bed hungry every week are close to 1,800,000. And in this country, it was said that we're talking about 12 million or more of people who go to bed hungry normally and regularly. So that's the starting point. Who's hungry where? The next question is, why are they hungry? The third question is, who's doing what to end hunger? Because we do know that there's a lot of people that are doing research. And then how do we strengthen synergies or connect lives? And lastly, what more needs to be done to make sure that we end hunger by 2030? Or at the very least, we make progress that is visible and concrete by next year's conference in 2024.
Prof, can we just take a step back to the corporate social responsibility? There seems to be the idea or the notion that in order for corporate to do its part, they need to be incentivized. Do you think that is the case, or do they just act based off their moral obligation?
Well, they can do it both ways. The first thing is that there are countries like South Africa where certain parts of corporate social responsibility are integrated in BE. So you score points, but that's not good enough. You've got to do it with an understanding that you're investing in society for yourself, for your family, for future generations. And one student from Stellenbosch University gave a marvelous paper about why this should be anchored in Ubuntu. And therefore, you don't just do minimum and you don't cheat because all you're trying to do is compliance and score points. You're doing this because you genuinely understand that you are in this boat. If this boat has holes, if this boat sinks, not only are you going to sink, our planet is under threat, your family and the future of your family is under threat as well. So the idea is just to do this as a legal compliance, as a business strategy, and as Ubuntu, understanding that we are interconnected as humanity. If we harm one, we're harming all, or an injury to one is an injury to all.
Prof, as you said, we are interconnected, and collaborative social justice interventions, it is seen as a very powerful tool for systematic change. Last question from me. Can you perhaps provide examples of successful collaborations between businesses and other stakeholders that has made a tangible impact on social justice, especially in South Africa?
The one that came out consistently was collaboration during COVID-19, where there was a tripod collaboration between government, civil society, and the state. And the idea was to tackle poverty and other disturbances that occurred during COVID-19. And as a result, a whole lot of people did not go hungry. But as soon as that collaboration ended, people went back to being hungry. Another example is the work of the Gift of the Givers, where they do the delivery as gift of the givers, but they often get called by government to come in. They are also supported by business. So again, it's another tripod arrangement. And there were many case studies in land, in housing, in food security, in job creation, in the financing and supporting of startups. And if this is done intentionally and with goals being specified and a very clear picture of what does the end look like, then, as the Musa plan says, we will accelerate the pace of change, and come next year, we will see a visible difference, and 2030 poverty would have been reduced, inequality would have been reduced, particularly structural inequality, and hopefully hunger will be history.
Prof, perhaps lastly, just briefly from my side, as you mentioned, collaboration is key. From where you are standing, what do you make, just briefly, of the relationship between government and corporate South Africa? Is it healthy enough to facilitate this collaboration we're talking about?
For some time it wasn't healthy, and this was pointed out by Ms. Thuli Madonsela, who is the CEO of Business Leadership South Africa and a member of the Council of Social Justice Champions. But both sides have realized that they need each other, that they're in the same boat, and this boat needs to be fixed by everyone. And she gave us examples of what business has undertaken to fix in the next couple of years. It was energy, it was infrastructure, particularly transport and security. And from civil society, we're coming in on the side of hunger, but there are overlaps between hunger, security, transport, and energy security. And there's a sense that there is now collaboration, although this way we used to see it, like the most important part would be government to get out of the way, because people are employed in government not because they're business people. They're employed in government because they can lead, they can coordinate, and therefore when they interfere, when they start telling those on the ground what to do, it becomes a problem, because sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So yes, the spirit is much better now. The room for collaboration is warm in South Africa. Globally, the structure for collaboration at this stage is the World Economic Forum, and another structure is the UN Global Compact. And of course, this UN Sustainable Development Goals are a wonderful agenda for change that makes it easier for all of us to find common ground and collaborate.
Thank you so much. We always appreciate your time and your insight there, of course, from the director of the Center for Social Justice at Stellenbosch University. That is, of course, Professor Thuli Madonsela.